let's talk a little bit about how fabric is woven and how to prepare it for making. First, I'm going to start with simple muslin. I'm going to roll out about 3/4 of a yard. So I've snipped at about 28 inches approximately, and this fabric tears. I want to take a small piece and show you how to deal with fabric in general. Okay, muslin tears beautifully. You have a selvage, and this is the length grain. This is the cross grain. Sometimes it's a little hard to determine which is the right side of a fabric. We'll talk about that more in a moment. I'm going to say this is the right side. So I'm going to mark on the wrong side. I'm going to put an arrow parallel but inside the selvage. And this is warp, W-A-R-P. Perpendicular to the length grain is the cross grain. So we're going to go this way, cross grain. Or weft, W-E-F-T, weft. When I'm preparing fabric, the first thing I want to do is mark the length grain. So if I forget which is length, which is cross, I'm always reminded. And then I'm going to snip and tear off the selvage. And before I cut the other side, I want to do the same thing. This will be the inside of the fabric, not the outside, the correct side, and this is the length grain. Snip and tear the selvage off. Now, let's say I want a piece. I'm doing this just for teaching purposes. But so I want a piece that's manageable, doesn't go off camera. I want to take, let's say this side, snip and tear. That means I'm going to use this piece, and when I go to use this piece someday, I will know that this is the length grain and this is the wrong side of the fabric. Now I want to show you how to block fabric. First, I like to press the edges nice and flat. When fabric is woven and then put on a bolt, it often becomes off grain. It stretches. So this may not be terribly off grain, but I can see it's a little bit off. You see how this bows a little bit? And if I lay this against a straight edge, how this side goes up. Well, it shouldn't, and I'm going to show you how to pull it back. Now, each one of these little hairs is a fiber. This is the length, and this is the cross. There's a little bit of give in the cross grain. There's very, very little, and usually none, in the length grain. So all of our garments are cut length grain. Okay? Even a pair of pants. Length grain. Sleeves. Length grain. But we also want perfect grain. So what I'm going to do to block this fabric is bring the edges together. And if I bring this edge, I'm laying the fabric here and touching one edge. You can see how short it is. And it's not that there are less fibers here, it's that it's gotten pushed out of alignment. So what I do is I take the short edge and it's diagonal opposite, and I pull it in that direction all along the fabric. Now let's try it again. Yep, see, it's already better. By aligning this, folding it, and matching this, it still bows a little bit, but we'll fix that. And now this is good. Now I'm going to start steaming it, and one thing I can do is pin it. Sometimes muslin is a bear and to work with, and it has a mind of its own. So I'm going to pin it together like this. And I'm going to steam it, but I'm not going to create a crease. This will help it go back into alignment. This is called blocking. Okay, so that's blocked, but I also want to check the other side. So I'm going to also fold it this way, bring the edges of one side together, and see if they match on the other side. This is pretty good. I think what I'll do here is put all the corners together and press it this way. And now I can see that it's blocked. Okay, wonderful. That is a blocked piece of fabric. And remember, grain line, length grain, cross grain. Cross grain would actually, let's see, 6. I'll do this in a bright color. This is my cross grain, and perpendicular is my length grain. Okay. Now, some fabrics will not tear. Let's experiment a little bit. This is a piece of linen and cotton that has been washed. If I'm going to wash a blouse after I make it, I pre-shrink the fabric by washing it gently. I usually do them by hand. This has been cut at the factory. I see that the selvage, this selvage will probably be hard to tear off, so I'll have to cut it. And usually good fabrics are folded so the better side, the fashion side that you want for the outside of the garment, is folded to the inside. But if not, look carefully at the selvage. Sometimes it will have little holes, and that's where they put the threads, the fibers on the bed where they weave the fabric back and forth. And the holes usually will go up, but to me, by looking at this selvage, this is the better side. So before I take anything off, inside those, I see the little holes. There's the selvage, but the little holes are here. So I don't want to make my garment, I don't want to cut my garment with this. So I'm going to mark my selvage right in here and cut this off. First I'll try tearing it, but let's see. Yeah, it tears pretty well. But this fabric as you can see, starts to flute a little bit, stretch. If it did a very bad job, if it was real wavy, I would simply cut the selvage like this. Okay, now what I want to do is see if this tears across. You always want to cut it and then either pull a grain, which I will show you, or tear, simply because then it's on perfect grain. Yes, this does tear, but this is an example of how it creates what I would call fluting. It's wavy. And if you have plenty of fabric and it can steam out fine, if not, we're not going to tear. See, I can press this back, but some fabrics could be problematic if you do this. So in that case, what you do is you make a little snip and you pull a thread. You'll see me do this on all these garments. And then where you've pulled the thread, you see a light line and you cut. This is nice fabric. It's not the finest. The threads are not terribly long and strong. So I have to pull a very short amount and then cut. But that's what I would do if it created the fluting by tearing. Let's take another couple of fabrics and see how they work. This is a wonderful Oxford cloth that I've had for a long time. It's been pre-shrunk. I will say that this is the wrong side. Now what I want to do, I'm going to try tearing this and seeing if it tears. Yeah, see there? It creates puckers. So if you're short on fabric, if you just have enough for your garment, don't even try tearing. Simply take a little snip and start pulling that thread all the way across. And let's see what happens. I think we're going to find that this fabric was not cut straight at the factory when it was sent to me. This was ordered online. So I'm going to come in a little ways. You want to cut off only as much as you need so that you have enough for your garment. Sometimes I order an extra quarter to half, or even a whole yard, so I'm sure I have enough fabric. See how that's almost to the edge? That means this was really not cut well. So in that case, you just keep snipping in till you find a place that will go all the way across the width of the fabric. Many years ago, my mother, when a teenager, worked in a fabric store, and this is how they cut fabrics for their clients. Nowadays, they lay them out on a table and cut them with scissors. So you know you're going to have to do what I'm doing, which is called straightening the grain. You're going to have to tear or pull all the way across. This is a very wide piece of fabric. It's 60 inches. See, this one just barely makes it, but it looks like it's going to make it. I have purchased fabrics from stores, gotten them home, and found that I ended up having to cut 6 or 8 inches because they weren't cut straight. So another good reason to ask for a little bit more than you really think you need. Now, to ready this for laying a pattern on top of it, I would also do this edge and then cut the selvages off as I have done with the muslin. We'll test one more piece, maybe 2. This is a beautiful, beautiful piece of silk that someone gave me, but she gave me half of the width. She needed half of the width for whatever project it was she was doing. This was cut. So in this case, I'm not going to cut the selvage off yet, but I'm going to show you. You would snip and pull a thread. Sometimes you can pull it, and it's kind of like gathering. You squeeze it between your fingers and pull, and then you can see exactly where that thread came out, and you cut right along that little line. This one goes off almost. Yep, it just really goes right to there. That's perfect. Okay, so to make something before this is on grain, but this one isn't, so I would do the same here. Length grain pulls a little bit differently, just feels a little different. Again, it's very hard to see with the camera, but I can see that faint absence of the fiber that I've pulled out, and you just keep pulling it all the way up. Okay, basically that's it. And one more. This is one of my favorite fabrics to work with. It's 4-ply silk crepe. I have made countless garments out of this, mostly slacks and suits. It doesn't wrinkle. It's wrinkled now because it's been folded, but if you hang it up, the wrinkles will fall out. It's just a wonderful, wonderful fabric. So the selvages are intact. What I want to do is just see how this tears. I think it's going to flute a little bit. Yeah, see, that flutes, but it doesn't create runners. So if I didn't have to have my pattern come to this very edge, I would tear it, or you've got your choice really, tear it or pull the thread, and then just steam it back. Normally, for a fabric this fine, and this is an extremely fine fabric, I do pull the thread. And this one will pull all the way across. You can see how it's gathering. And then yeah, this is beautiful. This is a little bit harder to see, but it's doable, etc. Be sure to steam all of your fabrics. The only one I don't steam very much would be charmeuse, silk charmeuse, because it changes the texture, or chiffons. But take a scrap, decide how you want to treat it after it's made, and if it needs washing, wash it. If it needs steaming, steam it, or leave it as it is. And that is blocking fabric.